What do you see as the future of mobility work?
Our goal is to create the future mobility. It's not always just for athletic performance. It's grandma that wants to be able to pick up her grandkids at 65. It's the mom that wants to make sure she can run the stroller around the block. The concept of movement is intrinsic to just being human. What we look to do is enable that.
Scott, welcome to the Mastery Lab.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so stoked you're here. Like, what you're doing is really amazing. Like, it's so well timed. And before we get into the mechanics of it, let me just start properly. Like, how are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. It was a good trip out. Glad to be here in LA.
Yeah. And when you say you're doing well, what does that mean for you?
Just overall, I mean, life is great. Business is on a good trajectory. Life's on a good trajectory. Feeling really settled where I'm at in New York. Just finally feel like this year is coming together.
Okay. There was an exhale when you said that.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been grinding for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
And it feels like some pieces have dropped into place where the momentum feels a little bit more seamless.
Absolutely. I think one of my biggest lessons is just really trusting a team and growing a team. And we spent, years running so lean that there's a lot on my shoulders, and I had, trouble letting go. And then when I finally learned to let go a little bit, life got incrementally easier and easier and just more fulfilling, and started enjoying what I was doing more. And, all that's really coming together this year.
You say that to a performance psychologist, and you know that I'm going to pull on that thread. Okay, so let's get to that in due time. But and as I say that, what happens for you in this moment? What happens for you when I say, "Oh, control"? Okay, we're going to come back to that. Do you go, "Oh, good," or do you go, "Uh-oh"?
Oh no, not scared of it at all. I think I've been down the road so many different ways that I enjoy exploring that, because for me it was a big learning experience.
That's cool. So part of your framework is to explore.
Of course. Yeah.
Not to defend and protect?
Not usually. Probably
not
early.
Usually. That's fun.
Probably early on.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely took more of that, kind of defensive model, protect the home front, really kind of build kind of stable system. But now I'm much more open to just, really evolving through learning. Everything is about just figuring out how it happens, why it happens, and continuously adapting around it.
Okay. And so when you were in a defensive posture for some part of your life, was that an aggressive posture, or was it a kind of back of your heel posture?
I think it probably started as an aggressive posture. I think, when I started out in business, I was very young, and you constantly felt like you had to prove something. You weren't taken seriously in a lot of ways.
Oh boy, here we go. I love where you're taking this. Okay, good.
And there was, it took a lot of a lot of forward pressure, a lot of resilience to, basically be told no 9 out of 10 times just because you don't have the experience, or, you're not good enough, or they don't, age is just a factor. But
because you were young.
A lot of it was because I was young when I was started. Then I was lucky enough to be able to parlay that into a strength. So I had some mentors and some early clients effectively give me that shot. And these clients, based on their reputation, were able to help me build mine.
Isn't that amazing?
It really taught me the meaning of mentorship, or the meaning of just investing in someone else. And something I've really carried forward to our team and what I do today is initiative is everything.
What is it? Their initiative?
Yeah. So in this case, it was my initiative being recognized by a potential client and them willing to support me in that. Now I see it kind of as a mission when someone is showing initiative, whether it's on the team or whether it's, in life, or, as long as they're willing to put the effort into it, you can build skill, you can learn anything, but that drive to get it done is kind of the core premise of moving the needle. So,
all right. So let's maybe go back up a couple levels and talk about what you're building. How do you describe what it is that you are building, the fullness of your business?
So pliability, I mean, we describe it as the human movement brand, which is very broad, but it's intrinsic to what we do as humans. So coming into the health and wellness space, I looked around, and you have a lot of fitness apps, you have a lot of devices, you have a lot of workout tools, you have all these things. But at the core of all of it, you have to be able to move as a human. You have to be able to pick things up. You have to be able to bend down. You have to actually be able to move your body and move it well. And something that's really instilled in me is it's not always just for athletic performance. It's grandma that wants to be able to pick up her grandkids at 65. It's the mom that wants to make sure she can run the stroller around the block. The concept of movement is intrinsic to just being human. And what we look to do is enable that.
In my commitment to fitness and overall health, early days was like strength and a little bit of, speed, agility, quickness stuff. And then as I've gotten older, strength is still a base for me to invest in as like a first mover. I'm spending, I don't know, let's say I'm going to work out for an hour. I'm spending, it feels like 35 minutes on mobility. Like working, like getting my body into a place that's ready.
It's amazing.
And then a bunch of that work is mobility. So when I saw what you were doing, I was like, I love it. Like, I really love what you're doing. I want to introduce it to folks. And the reason it was so important to me is because I had strength there, but I couldn't access it because of my mobility, because I'm sitting more than I ever have.
Of course, we all are.
Yeah. And so can you talk about like why this was important for you to build this business? Because it feels like you're well-timed. So what was going on in your life? And I don't know where you're going to take this, but like, why?
I mean, I can't take full credit. This was a business that I invested in and ended up acquiring. I originally was a tech guy, built websites and, apps and just various things on the tech side.
How old were you at that time?
I was installing like Wi-Fi systems at 15, started my first business at 18, straight out of high school.
Installing Wi-Fi systems? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So this was when it's hard to remember a time when you couldn't set up Wi-Fi yourself, but Wi-Fi actually used to be kind of a complex install, very early on. And started my first business at 18. That was building websites for cake shops and lawyers and
like single page, Web 1 type of stuff. Okay.
Simple stuff. So that agency,
that was a small shop of you and like 3 people, or just you?
Literally just me.
Yeah, right.
It was just me for the first year and a half. And then I partnered with one of my competitors, actually. We merged, created a digital agency. A digital agency grew to service clients in about 19 states.
How'd you know how to do that deal?
Actually, pretty funny story. So my partner in that business, I was always more talented with the business side of things, the sales. I could make things look good. I could go to a chamber of commerce and do like a really cool presentation, right? There was this guy that design work was absolutely beautiful. Like his eye for detail was phenomenal. And then he was able to back it with obviously a coding and a genius in coding. So there's a couple contracts that I lost to him, and I was kind of like, all right, what's going on here? So I email him, I'm just like, hey, can we meet at Starbucks? Literally, just come meet at Starbucks, let's chat. Little did I know that he shows up. He's 3 years younger than me at the time. So I was 21, he was 18. Show up at Starbucks and we start going over things, and we just kind of hit off as like a yin and yang scenario. And like, you take care of the business, I'll make sure things, are coded well and designed well. And within an 8-day period, we had signed the LLC papers for the new agency.
Okay. So this like fell into place.
Very much so.
It was organic.
Both had nothing to lose.
50-50?
50-50.
Tough deal. Tough deal to run.
Yeah.
Like, would you do a 50-50 deal again?
I have learned my lessons.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
It's certainly, I think.
Can you tell a story why like that was tough? Can you give an example?
So in the case of the digital agency business, I mean, it actually worked out wonderful. Daniel,
the first business.
Yeah, the first business. Daniel and I had a great relationship. We built this agency. I think he had a personality that just, meshed with mine, and it worked, up to a point. He ended up outgrowing the business and moved on. But
and then what happened there?
So the estimated version of the story is he's a Bitcoin multimillionaire. Daniel was buying Bitcoin and
fun. Yeah.
tried to get me to buy Bitcoin, when it was, $800, $900, and He
Yeah. Okay. So he was on it.
I didn't
And he's
take him
like,
up
listen,
on it.
I'm going a different direction. And
Yep.
when I said like what happened there, how did you transfer the shares? Did he just walk away and like, look, and
Effectively, yeah, it was a buyout. Yeah.
a buyout?
Yeah.
You bought him out.
Correct.
Relationships power the whole thing.
Of course.
Your relationship with yourself, your relationships with others, it powers just about everything. I don't know how to think outside of that framing, even your relationship with experience.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we're going to get to relationships with your body in a minute through what you're doing. But then, so let's follow this forward. So, first business was great until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Second business was?
There's been various, but the general trajectory was the digital agency acquired ROMWOD, or what was.
So that digital agency that
Correct.
you transformed. Okay. And ROMWOD was a client.
Yes. ROMWOD was a client of the agency. We had built, the original partners of ROMWOD, we had built another yoga business as a digital agency. So they came to us to build ROMWOD, which is the precursor to pliability today.
Okay. So they were your client.
Yep.
And you said, oh, we could scale this. And so is pliability still with that same structure with the original founders of, say it again, ROMWOD?
ROMWOD. Yeah. Oh, I know. It's a tough name that we've.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we rebranded.
Yeah. What did ROMWOD? I read it at some point. What did it stand for? ROMWOD.
Range of motion, workout of the day.
Yeah.
Longest acronym
Yeah,
ever.
There's something very explicit when you say it out, like, oh, I know what I'm getting.
Yep.
I'm getting a pliability. I'm getting a mobility exercise daily.
Yep.
Right.
So
Okay.
in the CrossFit space that we operated in, it made sense to that world.
Yeah.
Right. Like CrossFitters use acronyms for everything.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Range of motion, workout of the day.
Right. AMRAP is, as many rounds as possible. Like there's all sorts of acronyms in the CrossFit world. So for that group of people, the name worked.
Do you know how to tell if someone is a CrossFitter?
I mean, in my mind, I could think of 50 different ways, but I'm curious to what yours is.
They'll just tell you.
Yeah. There's one of them for sure.
That's a bad joke.
But
their traps are either up to their ears, and you can tell when they walk in.
Mine is always there's like a CrossFit uniform. There's shoes
right.
that are
there's
shoes, there's shorts, there's shirts,
very tight shorts.
Yep. You can.
Yeah.
I can always tell in a training setting who like has done CrossFit in the past or is a CrossFitter. Even if I go into an Equinox or wherever, I can normally pick out the CrossFitter.
And then if you look at their phone, it's like in their Fast Five friends or whatever that first page is. There's usually a chiro or a PT.
Yes.
There's a lot of like rehab stuff going on.
As I've personally learned, that's what CrossFit will do.
Yeah. So you don't look like a CrossFitter, and that doesn't mean you're not. But is that your training methodology, CrossFit?
It's very hybrid nowadays. So working in the CrossFit space, you kind of get adopted into that methodology. For years, I unfortunately ignored my health and wellness. Prior to 4.5 years ago, I was 60 pounds heavier.
On your frame?
Yep.
60 pounds?
Yeah, I got up to about 208, 209.
How tall are you?
5'11".
So how'd you do that?
So it was just terribly taking care of myself.
So this was not muscle?
No. Oh no. This was
not 60 pounds of fitness.
No, this was 60 pounds of pure unfitness. So it was, I was not in great shape.
Morbidly obese.
Yeah. 2018, 2019, I hit.
Hold on. I can get the time right. When did you become managing director of the company?
2015.
2015.
Yep.
You were out of shape? Maybe
absolutely.
Okay. And so you're grinding, you're building the business, and you're getting more unhealthy?
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the health and wellness. And I think there was almost not a resistance to it, but almost like an embarrassment about it. Like being an owner of a fitness company that was unfit, there was a constant push and pull to like how to resolve this and where to put my time and where to put my effort. And ultimately 2018, 2019, I hit, complete adrenal fatigue, resting heart rate was out of control, just, complete, like almost shutdown periods where, it was difficult to manage. So
was it you? Okay. Does obesity run in your family?
It does. My dad was diabetic, different things going on. But I mean, this was purely just, I would wake up in the morning, drink as many coffees as I could during the day, didn't eat, and then I would eat 4,000 calories at night. And I would literally crash so hard from that meal that I would wake up at 2 a.m. and be like, where am I?
Oh.
Yeah, it was just a gnarly cycle of not taking care of myself.
Yeah. Okay. And where's that come from? Like why not value you?
I think I didn't have the understanding of nutrition and health and wellness from my family.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
No. What is your assumption?
I don't know yet, but I just don't buy that reflexively. I didn't know that an apple versus an apple pie, that the apple pie was the bad decision or the unhealthy.
Yeah. I mean, you are right to an extent. I think it was obviously they're all decisions day to day that are made.
Yeah.
And my focus was strictly on building the business. And
now I understand you.
Right.
I was making a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
The choice that I was valuing was something else, was to build a business. But that's not the real choice. The thing that was underneath building a business was...
I think for me, it was probably, I guess proving myself a little bit.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, now you and I are speaking the same language, which is, okay, I am tirelessly going to work and sacrifice my sense of vibrance and well-being for a hopped up caffeine, insulin dump fatigue so that I can prop up in another way that I matter.
Mm-hmm. And the context to that story, so it comes full circle. I guess we're just going to share this with everybody, but 6 months after I acquired ROMWOD, my dad passed.
There you go.
So
trauma. You were close with your dad?
I was, yeah. It's a complete accident. It was an incident at work, but
what happened?
He was a security guard at a bank, and complete crazy accident. There was a handicap sign, effectively. This lady pulls in, doesn't stop, hits the handicap sign. Handicap sign hit my dad. They didn't have it bollarded or like a concrete barrier around the sign like they were supposed to. So it just collapsed and hit him.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
So this was November of 2015.
I still hear the grief in your voice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a challenging time for the family. I had my 9-year-old sister pass in 2009. So she was special needs, and she had a very short run. It was a lot of my parents. And then for my dad to pass in 2015, most of my grandparents passed in the period between that. So there was this 4 to 6 year period of a lot going on in the family. And it was also the period in which I was building and running a business.
This all makes, thank you for being a leader here, because what you're leading is you're saying, look, I was stuffing work and food to be able to numb the loss and the grief, the overwhelming loss and grief.
Absolutely.
One alone, but to have within a time frame 4, let's say, or maybe it's more, I don't know. And then, I think we don't celebrate this part of grief enough, which is person 1 dies, and then let's say even 15 years later, person 2 dies. That oftentimes we don't do like a full resolve. It's like we don't teach people, and we don't have a best practice on how to really work through grief.
Absolutely.
And so we stuff it. We drug it, drink it, work it. We do something to try to, okay, so you're nodding your head and then when we get to the second grief and we're at that funeral, it's like a compound effect.
Totally.
You recognize that. It's like shampoo. You wash once and you kind of get some of the dirt out. And then when you put your hand full of more shampoo the second time, like you really get it clean.
Yep.
Like you really get the lather. So there's a lather effect that takes place. And so how did you manage that?
It definitely felt like, compounding challenges. Because on one hand, there was, a great deal of grief and loss going on in that time. And on the other hand, I became responsible for my family, my mom, my sister.
Oh, so you had another layer of stress, which is financial.
Correct.
And now you're a managing partner. Like in some respects, you got to get this thing right.
Yeah.
I've abandoned my body. in pursuit of helping other people have better bodies. I've abandoned my health in pursuit of other people having better health. And I've got all this trauma that's sitting underneath. So yeah,
No,
I'm going and I'm going all in because I've got to get the numbers right.
Yep.
And then you add the trifecta, the third stool, which is like, I'm not really sure who I am without external success.
Yeah. I'm managing that now currently. So
Are you
working on it day to day. But ultimately that entire period, the two goals were just survive and create, I always describe it as creating stability, not wealth. So like a lot of business owners that go into business, I think the ultimate goal is to drive, growth and success and such. And my goal in building businesses was like to create stability.
It's what you needed. Mm-hmm. It's what our teammates, our employee base needs as well.
Yes.
Right? We all want hope. We all want a compelling future. We all want something that we can think about as epic later. And the volatility of not knowing if a check is coming is really overwhelming.
Absolutely.
So you're like, look, I need stability in my life, emotionally, physically, and financially. So you build your company rests on that first principle,
yes.
Stability.
Yep.
So in other words, we're going to play the long game.
Correct.
Okay. Now, how do you tie that with the actual application of mobility movement or pliability movement? Like, is it the same thing? Now I'm asking you to put on the other hat,
totally,
which is like the practitioner hat. Okay, the practitioner of mobility exercise. And I know that you're not the scientist there.
Correct.
You're the entrepreneur. But of course, you're going to have to know enough to be able to crosswalk this. Is mobility a sprint to get my body moving well, or is it the long game that to invest in an overall structure that has range?
It's absolutely the long game. And
now, is that a science-based idea or your philosophy on it?
Both. So
it is. Okay.
Pliability is built on the practice of yin yoga, which has been around for thousands of years.
One of our listeners might not know what that means.
So yin yoga, there's
I hope I didn't know.
No, there's two primary types of yoga, vinyasa and yin. Vinyasa is the traditional like workout yoga that you see in yoga studios or hot yoga studios and such. It's what you would do as a form of training. Yin yoga is long passive stretches. So effectively you get into a position, you hold it for 2 to 3 minutes. What this is doing is it's elongating the fascia and basically opening up the joints and opening up the body to work on its long game, as you put it. Mm-hmm. It enables it to move. It enables it to be comfortable with movement.
Most yin yoga sessions to be pleasant. It sounds like it's more pleasant. Yeah. But sitting with a moment for my hip, like it's after like, I don't know what it is for you, like 35, 40 seconds, somewhere in that range, there's an ache.
So we coach heavily. I mean, there's definitely like you're pushing your body past limits that it's not used to sitting in, right? Like not a lot of people sit in those poses for any other reason than doing like pliability and working on a mobility practice. But the ultimate goal is as you become more and more comfortable, as your body adapts further and further to those positions, you're creating increased range of motion. You're creating increased athletic ability. But I think one side that's we often find not mentioned is related enough is it's the mental and mindful practice to it.
Come on.
So because you're taking time and you have to hold yourself just in that moment of stillness. You're holding a static position. You're not actively moving towards anything. It almost forces you to stop and breathe and think and just feel. And it's something that we really feel needs to be a bigger part of people's lives, is just taking that moment and being with yourself, for yourself, and focusing not only on the body, but also in the mind.
You're speaking my language. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And so what are you guys doing there to enhance or increase reflection or awareness?
So a lot of it is done auditory cues, different tones, different affirmations that we'll offer throughout the routine. Something that's constantly in research and development. I think, long term, I'd love to speak with you about that and see
Yeah.
what we can do better there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But it's a huge part of what we want to do going forward, increasing more breathing practice, increasing more mindfulness practice, and just making it, always focusing on the body. But as you're focusing on the body, you have the time and you should be taking the capacity to work on the mind as well.
I am so uninterested in mastery of craft alone.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody that can, let's just keep it in your lane, like has incredible range of motion,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't used their craft to invest in mastery of self.
Got
So
it.
it's mastery of craft. It's mastery of self through mastery of craft, right?
Got it.
So the foundational is like, no, I need to try to work and, work towards being on the path of mastery. The craft is not the end game.
No,
It is the insight.
it's a journey.
Yeah, right. But well, even so, it's not for just the demonstration or the ability to physically do something,
Mhm.
whether it's on a canvas or on a yoga mat.
Yep.
It's so that becomes the working laboratory to really understand how your mind works, and then in a circular fashion, the mind actually unlocks
Absolutely.
further abilities. So
I'd agree with that.
yeah, I love how you're doing it. It's really good, and it's it's like getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole mental part there.
Yep.
And then once you get, let's say your body is lubricated a little bit, like it's a little bit easier. And then at the end range, like that 40-second hold or whatever it might be, there's another moment to be like, oh, stay in it. Be kind to yourself too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely a mental game to get through it in some of those holds. I mean, we have these routines on Thursdays we've called warrior routines that can be up to 40 minutes. And I think that those are definitely not for the faint of heart, because it takes, a lot of just focus and mental discipline to keep with it.
So in your platform, the app that you've built, talk about the difference between a journey for one. What is the journey that you hope one person goes on in your ecosystem?
So the ultimate goal is just to get them through. Initially, it's to get them through the door and understand the benefit of how this feels. So one thing that I really got interested in within this business is our trial to conversion rate is very high because you can feel it. It's something, if you can get someone to try it, they feel the effect. It's a oh, I feel good now, so I should continue doing this.
And how much time do you think people need?
We try to get people to do 15, 20 minutes. We find that most people are willing to dedicate 5 to 10. Our ultimate mission over the long term is to get people to understand the value and spend more time with themselves in mobility practice.
5 to 10 minutes every day.
Correct.
Yeah. And okay, so the journey is to get them in,
Yep.
to experience it.
Correct.
People go, oh, I feel like I can sit better. I can hold my posture better. I can breathe better.
Yep.
And because of that, I feel like life is a little easier. All
Totally.
true statements from a psychophysiology perspective. And so 5 to 10 minutes to start. And then what happens?
So once we can get them working through a practice, we start trying to address specific issues. So for example, we have like a workforce series, which is if your lower back's tight, you're sitting in a chair all day, we've designed routines that specifically work on that issue. Or if you have tight hips, you want to work on, running, like there's all sorts of different pathways you can go down that address your specific need or issue. So it increases like people's adherence to the platform because it's working on something that they need and they're really looking for. But ultimately what we're trying to do is give a platform where any practice within our platform is beneficial, whether it's a targeted goal that you're going towards, whether it's a daily practice, whether it's a fix for an injury or you're like working through an injury. Spending time with mobility will always have a net benefit.
And how do you help introduce the relationship piece to it? What's the community? What's the connection with other people as they're going through it?
So we work heavily. The whole company was born out of like a community vibe. CrossFit is very much that community centric type piece. So we've always approached it as whether it's, large in-person activations or through our athletes. Today, we find it more scalable to use our athletes, our sponsored athletes, who are great personable people on social media, to show how they use it in day-to-day life in pretty relatable ways. Like I'm laying out by the pool, I'm doing this with my wife, so I have more time with her. Like basically just connecting with this is how it fits within my life. And we built the community around kind of this, people are interested in fitness, people are interested in sport, but honestly, people just want to invest in themselves.
Okay, so is it a couple weeks in, then you find that, is there a conversion? So that's the conversion we're talking about. Okay, and then once people are converted, obviously you'd want them to stay forever, right? Okay, good. That's a good business model. At what point is this first sticking point that you need to re-grab their attention?
I think a lot of it comes from once people start feeling good, it's one of those things where they feel like they don't need it anymore. So we've seen a pretty cyclical thing with the business, which I haven't seen in any other business I've been involved in. So it's interesting in that people will come on the platform, they'll stay for a period of time, they leave for a short period of time, and then they come back to the platform.
And do they pause their membership, or the membership is continuing and then they're like, oh, I need to come back in?
We've seen it both ways.
It goes both ways.
Some people just let the membership run. Some actually cancel.
Yeah.
We see it more in the numbers when they cancel. Like we can of course look at the activity data, but the harder numbers are like watching the subscription drop. So we monitor that heavily, and it's our goal is to interact with those customers and see if we can keep them from that gap area. But ultimately,
so you want to move them through that gap.
Correct.
So Prochaska's theoretical model of change is a great 5-step. There's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. And you've captured them at contemplation to preparation to take action. So that's the phase we're talking about. Then from action to maintenance it's tricky. So a little bit of action, you're saying there's a drop. Nice. And if you can figure out what those triggers are and get right before them, obviously, then, with the right nudges and the right whatevers, you can help, get to maintenance. And then I found that that's where community can show up in a very powerful way. Is imagine you and I are at a social event that we want to be at.
Okay.
And at some point I look over at you and you're kind of like, I think I'm ready to go. And then I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it sounds good. And then the host comes over. Says, Scott, how you doing? I haven't had a chance to connect with you yet. And you go, oh, good. Now there's like this bump up, right?
Yep.
And then the host says, Scott, actually, there's someone I want you to meet. Do you have a few more minutes before you go? And you go, yeah. So there's like that relational.
Absolutely. It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. And so when you're modeling, when you think about a membership, is it a subscription or a membership? Is it a community or is it a training platform?
We try to build it as a community. I think training platform is something that you're going in and you're seeking a short-term goal, or you're seeking a smaller goal. We would position it as a community because this is a lifelong practice that we hope that we can provide for you or bring with you in. As mobility is not something that you can do and get done. It's not like, you've lost the weight, so you're done. You always have to maintain it. Mobility is the same thing. It needs to be maintained and worked on consistently.
Did you have that same, like a double loop experience with your own mobility training? Like you got after it for a little bit and then there was a fall off and then you came back?
To an extent. And I think I'm, being the position I'm in, I'm always heavily involved because it's like R&D and product and with our coaches and everything. So I'm always, more involved than most. But I certainly fell much more in love with mobility when I got into a fitness practice. So when I corrected, I had a great deal of help in this, but when I started getting into health and wellness personally, when my health and wellness took a turn for the positive, you start working out heavily, you start beating up your body a little bit, the value of mobility is shown that much more.
That's
right.
You
can't get into the right positions. You can't lift the right way. You're like, the real world application becomes very clear.
Is your target market for the already movers, or is it for the professional sitters, or like the people that are like you were in 2019?
It's all. I mean, we obviously we can't be everything to everyone, but those three groups we actually tackle in different ways.
Oh, so you saw those as three. The professional sitter is like someone who was once more active, and now has a slight kyphosis, the hunching of the back or rounding of the back, and tight hips, and maybe an Achilles shortening and a neck that's kind of bothering them. Okay, right, and maybe a little bit of elbow challenges.
All the things.
Right? Okay, so all the things. So that person versus somebody that is really struggling with their health versus somebody that's super active and just wants to open up their hips a little bit more so they can get into a deeper squat.
Correct.
Okay, so those are three groups. And then for the professional sitters, do you have a couple practices that you use or that your app points to that would be really important for someone just to consider as a way to play with, throughout the rhythm of their day, something they can do?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So within the app, we have specific content that addresses this that you can follow along with. But something that's in development that we're working on heavily is like these micro moments. If you can't take 15 minutes to do a full lower back routine, let's take 3 minutes at your desk to just take a break, step back from the computer, and do something that you can do anywhere at your desk, whether that's, some shoulder work, whether that's some lower back work, whether that's just like some ankle work,
All right,
whatever it may be.
Give me one. Give me three.
So, I mean, literally at your desk,
I need help.
You can, stand up, and on any floor, you can jump into a pigeon pose, which you need no equipment. You need nothing for.
Pigeon pose.
Yep. And that's going to work, everything through the hip, the lower back, and just start opening you up.
Also known as a runner's lunge.
To an extent, yep. So there's all sorts of variations. Pigeon has like 7 primary variations you can do.
Okay, so let's describe it.
So the pigeon is you come down to the floor, and depending on your range of mobility, so left foot would go forward, left foot would then turn inward. So you're bringing your knee to the floor. Your right foot is also on the floor. You want your chest upright, and the goal is you should be feeling the stretch all through back of your leg, glute, and into your lower back.
So one knee is bent. One knee is straight behind you.
Correct.
Or one leg is straight behind you, and you're kind of leaning into that bent front knee.
Correct.
Pigeon pose, runner's lunge, or whatever. And so, okay, when I'm in slacks, it's not working really well. If I'm in jeans that are, like a little stiff.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right. So and I don't want to sweat. I'm giving you some resistance here. How do you address some of those?
So for those, we would work on like some at desk upper body movements.
Yeah, you say, okay, well, then don't do it then. It's fine. If you're going to have, resistance, don't do those. Do something else.
Yeah. Our goal is to increase adoption and to get people to like make it part of the routine. You have to remove all friction points. So if it is something that's like, all right, well, I'm in jeans, so it isn't going to work. It's like, all right, well, here's what you can do that you can do in any shirt, in any clothes. So we would work on like, whether we can be as basic as some wrist mobility, or more pertinent to that group of people would be like upper back mobility, the kyphosis issues, bringing everything back and solid.
So what do you do there?
So that would be what we call like an archer position, where one arm comes over the head, one arm comes from behind. And if you can manage to grab both your hands together.
Oh, you're in the rare percentage of
yes,
people.
Most people can't. So you use either you can grab, a towel, a band, anything to connect the two hands.
Yeah. Okay. So one arm straight up next to your ear, and it's reaching back to kind of grab the back of your neck.
Yep.
The other arm's folding underneath in the opposite direction, and you're just trying to open up one shoulder in one posture and the other shoulder in the other posture. And then you would switch.
You swap it. Yep.
You swap it. And you'd say, grab a towel, grab something.
Yep. Yeah. And those can be for, as long as you're willing to do so, or as short as you have the time for.
So static stretching, there was it's having a moment. And there's some pushback on the research about whether it is okay or not, if it's good or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about your position as a company on static stretching.
Yeah. So we've, one of my business partners that designed ROMWOD effectively has, worked on this for years. And ultimately, we've come to the position as a company that it should be like a cool down practice. So where the resistance comes from is people say it shouldn't be a warm up to an athletic movement.
So long hold stretches, not for a warm up.
Correct.
You've elongated the elasticity of the exercise of the muscle band or whatever. And that's not the place to do, that's not the time or place to do prior to.
That is the argument. That is the argument that's out there.
So it's not a danger
to
to the tissue that you're going to hold and stretch too long. And
No, it's static stretching, it's by its form, it's meant to be non-stressful. So obviously we have to coach and make sure people don't push themselves too far, really make it like an active movement. But if you're performing static stretches properly, you are at no risk of doing those things.
Yeah, I don't know. I think probably you are competing with Kelly Starrett. I think that might be I don't know for sure.
Kelly's a genius in what he does. I really respect what he's brought because he brings a awareness of mobility. Like he's the one that's really put mobility on the map in the world.
Yeah,
he's gone out and he really made it the thing.
You know what I love that he does? It just makes it available. It's like, look, just do this.
And we do two totally separate things. I mean, what Kelly does is much more like a PT style, addressing injury, very technical. Like he's literally a doctor in what he does.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is make it easy for everyone. Make it simple, make it direct. Doesn't need to be complex. You don't need, bars and bands and balls and like all these things to do it. I mean, of course we have some of our movements that require those things, but the ultimate goal is you could do it anytime, anywhere, short period of time, long period of time. This needs to be something that fits within your lifestyle. What
do you see as the future of mobility work? And a double part question, what do you see as the future of pliability?
I mean, our goal is to create the future mobility in that we developed this mobility scan or assessment with the iPhone, where effectively you stand in front of a wall, set up your iPhone. Our app guides you through a series of movements. And using the LiDAR technology in the phone, 3D mapping, and a bunch of magic sauce, we identify where you're restricted in mobility, and then we can present programming off of that. Our ultimate goal...
Is this IP owned?
It is. We developed it.
In the market?
Yeah. No, this is something we're very proud to say we developed it from the ground up. We had a developer that was very into like this vision technology, which is an API of Apple's. And it's worked on it for years, worked on it with our coaches, worked on it with our motion specialists.
And how do you have confidence in the reference points that you base the model on?
Broad testing. We have a user base that spans users in 100 countries. So as this deploys, we get a lot of data back. We can have that data analyzed. We can have it looked at. And it's just having a broad set of data to be able to validate it.
This is what most humans that move under our camera, our lighting, our IP. This is what most do, and this is what the greats do, or the very healthy do.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the spectrum. Everyone has, whether it's a genetic restriction. I think one interesting thing I was told when I started working with one of my partners in the business, he's a yoga teacher, effectively. Like he is the yoga part of this business. I used to joke, he would come into a conference, he'd be in a conference room, and the man would just be in the splits on the floor because he could. And he would just chill in the splits like it was nothing. And I remember saying to him, I'm never going to be able to do that. And he broke it down for me. He said, well, that could be true or that could not be true. Some people simply will never be able to do the splits because of the way their hips are designed and their bones and stuff. But most people, it's just a muscular restriction. So it's interesting hearing that there actually is multiple parts to it being possible and it not being possible.
Okay, so go back to the future of pliability, but the future of mobility.
Future mobility would be we need people to understand that it is a core part of life, but also a core part of training. So just like everyone spends time, they know they need to do cardio. They know they need to do strength. Mobility should be that third piece. Mobility should be like the foundational piece to anything you want to do in movement. So we want to take it to the world and say, if you want to lift your grandkids up, if you want to stay moving, if you want to feel great at 80, this is a lifelong practice you need to be part of. And then we say to the sports and the athletes, like this should be foundational to what you do. If you do this well, the other two pieces fall in line.
Okay. Look, I think the reason I wanted to introduce what you're doing to our community is because in the executive space, like the corporate lifestyle, I'm watching people like turn into hunchbacks.
Absolutely.
Like really stressed out, maybe I'm talking about myself here. I'm not sure, but like I'm
as well.
watching, I'm watching this curvature that's happening,
Mhm.
and I just want to celebrate two things: the solution that you're building or have built. I say building because
Always
of course
evolving.
it's going to evolve, but you've built it. And then the second is people that needed something in their lives and then go out in the world and build it.
Mm.
And so you didn't quite know how much you needed it,
Very true.
but at some
Yep.
deep level, your intuition was like, I want to invest in that.
Yep.
Both from a financial, economic model opportunity, but there's probably something far deeper as I've gotten to know you that of course is what you needed,
Mhm.
right? A community of people that are valuing health, full stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bravo on getting through like the pain or working with the pain. I don't know if anyone's ever through pain, but working with the pain to get to something that is celebrating life for so many. It's
Appreciate
rad.
it. I didn't do it alone. I had a great deal of help along the way. I mean, everything from mentors during that time. I mean, the staff during that time, and then I mean, ultimately the last 4 years, like me getting my health and wellness on track, that was bringing a new partner into the business. So I had Cody Mooney, who's an ex-CrossFit Games athlete, and he was a sponsored athlete of the team for years.
Did I meet Cody?
You did?
Yeah,
Yep.
at our event.
Yep. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
good.
Cody he's the newest partner to the business.
Mhm.
And he was the guy that I called. I'd known him for years as an athlete. He was the guy that I called when I hit my lowest health point. And it was because I was vulnerable and I didn't know, I needed someone I could trust. And I called him and I said, look, I don't know what to do about this health and wellness thing. You know, he wasn't sure what he was doing on his CrossFit career path. You know, CrossFitters don't typically have, you know, it's not like a NFL track type career.
Mhm.
So I called him up and said, you know, hey, can you remote coach me? What can be done? And to make a long story short, through that remote coaching, which eventually turned into side-by-side partnership, I learned the value of health and wellness and really gained an appreciation and new outlook on how important that is, not only for my life, but for what we do as a business. And he was able to kind of like mind meld the entire business from me. So now instead of me having the majority of the load of the business, we share the load of the business and are able to play this like yin and yang scenario.
Oh, there you go. How did you know that you could trust Cody?
Good. That's like that gut intuition that I look for in people. I knew him for years. I had traveled with him as a sponsored athlete, but it's a level of integrity and loyalty that you don't find in many people. He just does what he says he's going to do, and it was instinct. I knew I could trust him, and he's proven that time and time and time again.
Okay, very cool. There's typically 3 legs to the stool of trust, which is authenticity. They show up over and over again in a consistent way.
Yep.
High stress, low stress are the same person. Benevolence is like the third leg, where you get this idea like they're in it for me too. They're in it for themselves. Like there's something that is going to work for them. But I also see that they've got room or a shared space for both of us to be great together.
Absolutely.
And then the third is ability. They've got the chops to get something done, and I can rest on knowing that they've got some real skills.
And that's where I was able to see in Cody through his athletic career, you know, watching him compete, that box was checked immediately for me when he came to the door, because you would watch, you know, for those not familiar with the sport of CrossFit, it's basically all sports in one. It's the sport of working out. You're just crushing yourself at a very high intensity, and Cody did very well at it. Literally second on the podium on teams, and you know, that the work ethic I knew was there. So when you add the work ethic piece, and then you add the integrity and loyalty that was shown time and time again, my goal of building with him was, look, you're concerned that your career trajectory as an athlete, where's it going to go?
Yeah.
You have these pieces I think we can build on. Let's roll.
So okay, let's round third base here. Are there a couple things that you would hope based on your investment in your own life to be healthier
Mhm.
and the business model that you're creating based on health. Are there a few things that you would hope people could practice or would practice to be just a little bit better themselves?
I think the biggest one that I've been working on with myself lately is taking silent moments, taking time for yourself, and taking space. I guess it's just like the concept of holding space for others, hold space for yourself, and that you need to step away from the technology, the phones, the family craziness, the everything that you can. And even if you can only find 5 minutes, you need to take that time. And if you can mix it with a physical practice in with the mental practice, like those recentering yourself is more beneficial than I'd ever realized.
And literally your mobility work does hit on those. It's 5 minutes, like you said. There's a stillness that you can find in slow movements or static holds. And at the same time, you are clutter-free, right? And just with your mind and your body.
That's the goal.
I love it, man. Thank you. I really appreciate what you're building and how you're going about it. And I thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
I appreciate you.